You're recording.
Okay, so this is part 3 of internet culture. Okay, when we had talked about Lord Kelvin.
Yes.
No.
What? Yes, we have.
Yeah, about
No, we didn't.
connecting from here to here.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, and we talked about connecting through this way.
Yeah.
Okay, this is, so, somebody raise your hand and tell me what the internet is. Raise your hands. Tell me what the internet is. Thomas.
A bunch of computers connected together across the world.
A bunch of computers connected together. It doesn't have to be across the world, but it is now across the world. Early on, it was just across the United States. Okay? So when you Google diagram of the internet, you get something that looks like this. Physical objects connected together. This is the cloud because we're not totally sure what's going on there. I mean, again, there are network engineers who are totally sure what's going on there. It's not a mystery. It's just that when most people are diagramming it, they don't know enough about everything that's happening there, so they just draw this cloud. That's where the term cloud comes from. So when you Google internet, you get pictures like this. But when you Google the World Wide Web, you get really weird conceptual pictures like this. Like not pictures of computers, but pictures of these just lines drawn. Okay? Because what it's trying to symbolize is the transfer of information that happens on the internet. Information going from one computer to another. Okay? And this concept that if some of these wires get cut, if all these cables get cut, it doesn't matter. It can go around the planet that way, it doesn't matter. It's a web, it's complicated. And the goal was, early on, look, if a cable gets cut, it should just be automatic that the signal goes around it. And that's what they've accomplished. You could cut 10 cables in the Atlantic today, and you'd still be able to get to sites in Europe. Okay? The internet automatically sends the traffic around the breaks. It might slow down, but it would still work.
So you mean physical cables that are...
I mean physical cables.
Then how do they know if they're cut?
How do you know if you cut one? Oh, I think you know when you cut one. Oh, the cable. How do you know if you've cut a cable?
Oh,
You get that? Okay. Because there's a sender on one side, there are senders and receivers on either side of that cable, and all of a sudden they can't talk to each other anymore. What happens is, out here in the middle of the ocean, they're pretty safe, mostly, but where they get landed, that's what they call it, when it comes ashore, they have to go through real shallow water. And a lot of times that shallow water is the same place fishermen like drag big metal nets to get seashell, like get scallops and stuff like that, seafood. And they're dragging their metal net and they go like, I don't know, hold on something, hold on, grab it. You just snapped an internet cable, thanks a lot. That was $50 million. And they're real hard to fix because they're underwater, right? So that happens. And so they've been doing it like now they're armored. Like when they go through the shallow water, they have this big steel case around them, and they have these special ships that'll like shoot a water jet and dig out the sand and bury it so it's less likely to get snagged and stuff. This has been happening for really 100 years that they've been trying to figure out how to, because remember, Lord Kelvin lays the first one of these during the Old West, 1870s, okay? 1890s, something like that.
what would you make it out of? Like,
He made it out of copper and then layers of rubber and stuff. This was before they knew somebody was going to break it. It was the first one, right? So then real quick that one gets broken and they're like, oh crap, we got to do something about that. Okay? So then they've been working on trying to fix that for a long time. His isn't working anymore, right? It's hundreds of years old. So it's long ago ceased working.
do they still have it? Like around?
I'm sure it's still under there. Yeah, I mean, there is literally tons and tons, of copper, hundreds or thousands of tons of copper, all under the world's oceans. Where those cables got laid and they've been broken and abandoned. Today they're made out of glass.
What happens if you just take that off?
And you probably would get away with it and nobody would know, and you could sell it for lots of money. But remember, it's half a mile underwater. So it's kind of hard to get to. Here's the problem. It would cost you more to go get it than it was worth. So that's why it gets
You're
tough.
not making anything.
Right, you're losing money actually. Okay, so the World Wide Web isn't the internet, but it runs on the internet. Chromebook should be closed. Even though we're talking about the internet, let's not use it right this second. So the web is a concept. It's the information that's flowing on it, okay? Now, ISP, what's that?
Internet service provider.
Internet Service Provider, what is that?
Provides internet for you.
Okay, so these people are laying these cables, and today the cables are made of glass, and I showed you fiber optic cable, right?
Yeah.
And those things are really expensive, and they don't work like copper. Like you couldn't put two clips on it and just use it. You have there's light inside of there, and you actually have to have a very special connector to connect to it. And people get paid $50 an hour just to connect those cables together. Like they get paid lots of money. It's really expensive. So when you want to connect to it, you can't just go out with a hatchet and cut into it. And, oh, I'm connected to the internet now. You've got to pay somebody, okay? And here's the basics of this story. Here's what happened. The first internet is for big defense contractors and researchers and stuff, the government. Then, some things you don't know about the world. One is that lots of times a professor's job, most of the time a professor at a university, teaching you guys is kind of secondary. That's not the primary part of their job. In fact, that's not the reason you ever get hired as a professor, pretty much. The primary part of your job is what? Anybody know? No, that's the secondary part. The primary part is research, coming up with new stuff. And so engineering professors and physics professors sometimes, so they have to get money to do the research, and the university doesn't usually give it to them. They have to get it from somewhere else. Whether these people who have a lot of money, called the Defense Department, they're the ones who invented the internet in the first place. And they have all sorts of money, like billions of dollars a year, trillions of dollars a year, actually, the defense budget. If you look at the United States budget, 40% of it, 40% of $16 trillion a year is all for the military. Did you know that? 58?
Yeah.
It's that high? 60% for the military. So, $10 trillion. That's a lot of money sloshing around, right? Yes, wait, first letter. Oh, Marvin.
How do you not know
Marvin.
his name?
I'm Marvion.
He
Marvin.
gets in trouble all the time.
Tell me.
Marcus.
Marcus, sorry Marcus, go ahead.
Isn't it like the bank? Like if you were gonna build a school, would they give you the money or would they give you a loan?
Well, a school is probably a bad example. A house would be a better example. The bank gives you a loan for a house. Schools usually come from the government. They come from tax revenue and stuff. Yeah, if you're going to build a house, most people don't have $250,000 of cash sitting around in a suitcase. They usually have to borrow from the bank and pay back. You probably learned this in 3 years recently, right? Yes, Marvion.
You were talking about how $10 trillion is going to the military. I just have a question. Where is, what percentage does just giving it to just other things?
What percentage is feeding the hungry?
So if you look up, you can look this up, but it's something like over 50%, I guess, military. Then the next 45% is Medicare and Medicaid, which is public and Social Security. Sorry. Okay, and then, so that takes up about 95% of everything the United States spends every year. Everything else we buy, schools, government workers, assistance for other countries, all that stuff comes out of the last 5%. That's called discretionary spending. Look it up. I know, it's nuts. If they would take, here's that, look, I'm on a quick aside and then we got to get back. I'm in favor of us having a strong military, okay? But here's how much we spend on the military. This is the interesting fact. If you took the next 14 countries on earth that spend money on their military, we spend more than all 14 of them combined And all 14 of them are our allies. Aha! Not all 14 put together. We spend more than all of them. There are, like, the most powerful conventional weapon you can have, like not a nuke, is an aircraft carrier. There are like 16 of them in the world. The United States owns 14, or 12 or something, okay? And they cost like $1 billion a piece or something. Yes? Wait, first letter. E. Not Daniel. The other guy. Tell me.
The other D.
Daniel, sorry, Daniel. Go. Ladies, hold it. Shh. Daniel, ladies, we got a camera rolling, so
Everything you're saying is being
everything you say.
captured.
Daniel.
The U.S. government cut their funding for the military by 80%. We would still have the largest.
Yeah, it's that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So sometimes, look, and there are good reasons to spend that money. I'm not sure we have to spend that much. We could argue about that another time. It's partly a jobs program, so there are good reasons to spend it. But quickly, Marcus, and then we got to go forward.
But have we ever lost a war?
Oh yeah, we totally lost Vietnam.
Totally.
Sam,
Korea.
No.
Same.
Korea.
Well, that was actually a draw. It's still technically going on.
Okay, let's talk about that later. Okay,
Right now,
so,
it's just pretty much the Cold War again.
suffice it to say, this started by, there's a bunch of money sloshing around the defense. So if you're a professor and you have to do research, and you're in like physics, there's probably a lot of money that you could apply for grants from the Defense Department. You have to get research money to keep your job as a professor. It's just how it works. Okay? So a lot of them are doing Defense Department research. Well, when they start doing this, they're like, it'd be easier if I could connect to this internet thing you guys are using. And in fact, some of them were doing research on the internet and making it better, computer scientists. They're like, we could connect to you and I could send information back and forth to you. Okay, so they start connecting universities to the Department of Defense, and then they start connecting, these guys go like, hey, or gals, go, hey, I'm doing research with this professor at this other university, can you just connect us? Okay, so they connect you guys, and now you can start talking. All these universities start getting connected together, okay? Because laying these cables, you have to dig a big hole in the ground, and they have to go hundreds or thousands of miles. It's really expensive, right? And so on your way to that university across the country, you might go, well, we could stop off at this university and go in and connect them in, and then go to that university and make short hops and connect them all together, and then they're all connected.
So it's like
right?
a vein.
Yeah, exactly. So the internet gets built and all these universities are connected together, but mostly in the late 80s and early 90s, nobody else is connected to it. So I go to college in 1993, and I had heard about email because I had a buddy whose dad worked for IBM. So IBM, of course, had this because they're a technology company. And the University of Arkansas was my ISP, okay? They were my internet service provider because the university, whole campus, was all wired together so you could send stuff to each other, and they were wired into the main line so they could get to other universities, right? So I paid fees that covered that cost, right? All the students still do. Internet and technology fee. This was my experience with the internet in 1993. That's it. No pictures, no music, text only, usually white on black.
Oh, it's nasty.
This is called Pine.
Mine's not up.
Pine stands for Pine's not Elm. How did you know that?
Because
Your
we call
name
it.
is
Oh, we did this already? So we did this part.
Yes.
Okay, did we do the browser?
Yeah.
Okay, so we saw. So we've been doing stuff we already had done?
Yep.
Why didn't you tell me?
We did tell you.
Oh, okay. I didn't know we'd stop here. Okay, so how much of this did we talk about?
Yes.
All of it. We talked about phones?
Yes.
Awesome.
You're not that.
You guys on the video, you should have fast forwarded 10 minutes ago. Ha! Okay, so. We did this? No.
No.
Okay, so. We talked about phone books. Yes?
No.
Yes.
No phone books. Okay, let's go back. Did we talk about operators?
Yes.
Yeah, it's like
Like Microsoft.
We talked about this?
Yeah.
So we didn't talk about phone books.
No.
Okay, so did we get to thousands of people and you have to call and say 778?
Yes.
Okay, well if you know your friend's phone number, then you call the operator and you say, Springdale 7782, and she goes, okay, plugged it in. But what if you want to call the drugstore and you don't know what their number is? What do you do?
That big old thing that just sits in the
Somebody
driveway.
invents, somebody goes, hey, people don't know all these numbers. We have so many phones. So let's write them all down with where they go and publish a book. And since you're paying for a phone, and they were pretty expensive back then we'll give you the book for free. Or as part of your, it's not for free because you don't just get one for the asking. We'll give it to you with your phone service. And then you can look up the number to call, okay? Because there are so many phones, we have a problem. Well, remember that these guys want to see pictures at first, right? These people want to see pictures with their news groups, so in college they just write this. Then they say, hey, we should make a business out of this. Then Microsoft says, yes, we should take that business. And then Firefox says we can do it better, blah, blah, blah. Now we're in Chrome. And there are lots of browsers you could use, right? As this is happening, the reason Microsoft gets interested is because lots of people are using this. The reason lots of people are using this is because lots and lots more people have websites. So we're at the point where you don't know anybody's phone number anymore. Unless you knew about the website already, there's no way you could have found your way to the website. I remember, House, do you remember the first time you saw a web address on TV and how kind of freaky it was?
I can't
On a
remember. I
commercial?
don't remember the exact first one, but I remember that was seemed out of place. But
Yeah.
we also knew that it was going to be on every page, every commercial,
You
everywhere.
start seeing commercials
Once
and
it starts
everybody
out, it's
starts
like, it's gonna
publishing
be
their web
everywhere,
address. And now they don't anymore because you just Google it. But back then, the only way to find somebody was to know their web address. So,
Yeah.
some people
The world
decide,
without
hey,
Google, it was a real thing.
we basically need a phone book / operator to find all this stuff. And so they wrote something called a search engine. And what a search engine was a big database, a big list of websites, and then literally in 1998 or so, or 2000, in 2000 and 2003 you could still do this. In order to get somebody to find your website, since they weren't going to know the name of your website, right? But they might be looking for lawn care services, okay? And your website is advertising your lawn care business. You got to put up to 150 keywords, okay? And so you would put lawn and care and business, and if all three of those were in there, then probably when somebody searched for it in the search engine, that would be one of the websites which they showed you, like, oh yeah, you're probably looking for this. There were literally people in the early 2000s whose whole job was, you could hire them and they would tell you what keywords to put in those 150 words in order to make sure your website came up number one. Why? If your website comes up number one, what's going to happen? Everybody's going to click on the first one, right?
Yeah.
So there were whole jobs of people who were consultants that they made their whole living off telling you, coming up with those keywords to try to make your website come up first, mostly in this search engine, Alta Vista. There were some other ones that were around. There was one that started with an L that I can't remember what it was called. Yes, Marcus.
They give money for it?
Yeah. If I can make sure that every time somebody searches the web, your business comes up and somebody else's doesn't, how much are you going to pay me? If each time, remember the web's really small, so each time yours comes up, that's $100 for you. And there are thousands or millions of people on the web. You're willing to pay me some money to do that, right? I can charge you $10,000 for this service. Okay? Especially if I live in like New York City. So, this is what search engines look like. Now remember, a search engine doesn't own the web page. They're just like the phone book / operator. They find the number for you and connect you to the number by you clicking on the link, okay? That's like making a phone call. There are lots of different search engines, and back then there were a whole bunch of them. Web crawler, Ask Jeeves. Do you remember Ask Jeeves' house?
Oh, yeah.
It became Ask.com later. It was called Ask Jeeves. It had this butler. It was its symbol. And so this is
Ask
why
Jeeves wasn't that one of the first ones that you could actually type like just straight
just a
questions
question.
like normal language? You didn't have
type
to
a
Google it,
sentence,
right?
and it would attempt to
Yeah.
figure it out for you, and it sucked at it.
It was pretty bad.
This is the one I always used. Look at the web. Look at the search
Alta
engine.
Vista.
In about 2000, about 1999, 1988, 1999, somebody tells me, hey, you should, my friend Conrad, who was actually the guy whose dad worked for IBM. We had been buddies in high school. Then he went off to Berkeley. He was actually Chelsea Clinton's RA while President Clinton was the president. So like Chelsea lived in his, he was like the head of the hall. He was in charge and she worked in there. I told you about that? So this is Conrad, okay? So Conrad went to Berkeley and he goes, hey, you should check out this search engine called Google. Because it was written, I think, by guys at Berkeley, actually.
Well, it was invented in 1999. It was 16 years old.
It was 99?
Yeah.
Okay, so 99 then.
It's Google Drive.
So he says, hey, you should check this out. Okay, remember what I'm used to looking at. You know, this. I pull up google.com like Google, and he's like, yeah, Google means a 1 with 100 zeros after it. And I was like, really? And he was like, yeah, it's a number. And I'm like, okay, I didn't know that. Never heard the word Google before, except in Back to the Future, where Doc Brown talks about a Googleplex. So, this comes up. Totally white screen. This is at the top. That microphone's not there. I'm feeling lucky's not there. Just this. I thought the page was broken. Because I was like, where's all the stuff? It's blank. I was intimidated, actually. I was like, I don't know what to do. Even though I never used any of the junk on Alta Vista, I just typed in the box, and Google had figured out, hey, nobody wants that junk. They just want the box, so let's just give them the box. Then I didn't know what to do. I was like, oh, what do I do? Exactly the same thing you do otherwise, you just type in this box. That was the first thing Google did that was really weird and freaky. Okay, I wouldn't use it at first. I was like, I'm going to use Alta Vista. I want all my junk on there that I never use. The second thing Google did that was the reason Conrad told me I should use it was the way they did their searching. Search terms were still around, but what most search engines did was look through the search terms and figure out how many matched, and that was how they could tell you which one would come up first. And that's why people can consult and make your page go to the top. Google said, hey, look, those guys are gaming the system, okay? They, obviously, if there's a job and they can make the results come out however they want, that's not necessarily the page everybody wants. That's just the one that's coming up first, and those guys are benefiting by this. What if we changed it so that when you do a search, we look at all the websites that link to that site? How many sites refer to your site about this topic? What does that tell you?
This one's the main one they're feeding off of it, so this one's probably gonna have most of the information.
Okay, if there's a whole bunch pointing at this one for that topic, and not very many pointing at this one for the same topic,
Better.
people think this one's better. Somebody does, right? The community thinks that this is the authority for this because they've all linked to it. That was the breakthrough. Because that was actually more likely to get you the websites that you were really looking for instead of the websites somebody was trying to get you to use. Now, people learned how to game that system for a while too. Google's always trying to stop them. Because Google wants to be the people who game that system. Because Google wants to make money. But they invented that idea. And it was a breakthrough. And it was so good that You don't say search for things anymore, you say I Googled it. The company name became a verb. That's when you know you're winning. Like Jell-O, does anybody know that Jell-O's not a thing, it's just a brand?
Kleenex.
It's gelatin. Right, like Kleenex is a tissue. Kleenex is the brand. But it's so popular, it's so ubiquitous is the word, that you just use the name for the
And
company.
German.
Coke. In the South, we say, I want a Coke. What kind? Orange. Okay? So,
No, they just mean like, Coke is orange.
yeah, but in the South, people call all sodas Coke. That's how popular Coke is.
Oh, okay.
Marcus.
So would like Google be the big link and then like Yahoo be like big?
No, Yahoo's a different search engine.
No, I mean like.
You mean
It's an app.
when that in that algorithm, Google has the most people on earth use Google for searching. Yes, but they don't. Yahoo and Bing use their own algorithms. They use different rules. They probably use some that are based on Google's, but that's top secret at Google. You don't know exactly what they're doing. And Google's changed. Okay, now today, if I Googled something and you Googled the exact same thing, there's a good chance we wouldn't get the same results. Because Google's been tracking what traffic you look for, and they've been tracking what traffic I look for, and they try to tailor the results to us. And mainly they do that because they make all their money on advertising. So if they can ensure that if I see an advertisement I probably will buy, you're probably not buying the same things that I am, right? In some cases we are, but mostly not. They want to tailor it to you so they can sell that.
So instead of making like, say like 50 bucks on like a pair of two people, they can make 50 bucks on
Each.
one.
Right. Yeah. So, here's the thing to remember. When you Google something, or when you search for something, you guys say, what? Search it up. Search that up. When you search for something, who's providing the web page? Is it Google? Mostly no. Google's the operator/phone book. They're making the connection for you. But I've had lots of students who think that Google's the one providing all these answers. Google's not. They're just the operator. Okay? When you go to a website, you're connecting to someone somewhere, like Avery's using her phone right now to connect to someone somewhere. She's put it up now, thank you. And that person is who's giving you the information. How does Google work? The first business I ever owned was called Iron Horse Computers, made $0. We built computers. That guy right there was my business partner, Enoch Mullen. Just a minute, we'll see a little bit of that. Really? Yes.
Oh, you showed
Whoops,
us.
hold on. Oh no! Everything's been turned down. Hold on.
Oh.
Mr. House, can you go see if you can turn the volume up on these things?
On what things?
On the speakers.
Well, I won't know there's not anything playing. You can be really loud.
Go look at the song. Show us your favorite song.
Always not.
Do your favorite song.
All right, let's see.
Does it not work?
I know I had to turn it on so I could hear.
Turn that. No, it's in here. I have the block and go back here.
Oh.
Because I want to turn that.
Turn it up. Why'd you pause it? It's our first day, kids. Just bear with us. Okay. All right, it's playing.
It's all on camera.
No sound. Should I have it on separate or combined? No saying.
Well, that would help.
Recently, the industry came under fire for being energy hogs, consuming huge amounts of electricity to keep servers running in air-conditioned rooms. On our tour, Google was very eager to show us how they were reducing their carbon footprint here at the data centers. That's
Turn it down a little bit.
Yeah, I will.
how many servers are on this floor.
So today we have 55,200.
The sheer size and scale of the place is breathtaking. Employees must wear earplugs to protect their hearing from the constant whir of tens of thousands of machines.
So each of these servers basically is like a PC except somewhat more powerful.
And when one of those servers
And everything.
That guy, Enoch Kohler, my first business partner. Was president of his class. Yeah, now I hear that.
Now you
Can
hear
you
that.
go back there and turn down page and see if that turns? I think that's what's up right now.
Page?
I think that's the one that's doing it.
Don't turn it off like
So,
At least you can make good music.
They have no music, just
I'll wait.
That's because she's there and she's a
Okay. About 98, we started this hardware business together. Didn't make any money. He was president of his class in Fayetteville High School. I can still hear it a little bit, but it seems better.
Okay, good. I didn't actually do anything. No, I'm just
The
kidding.
place they are is in Lenore, North Carolina. Enoch runs the entire data center. He's the site supervisor for the whole thing. This whole building. This building and the buildings under here are like several football fields worth of space. And I have a couple other buddies who work for him now, and both of them started out repairing these computers, and now they do other stuff. Okay? Those computers are what Google uses to find out. It is really annoying. To find out, to do the searches, okay? These have huge databases. All the phone books we're talking about, well, the phone books have gotten really huge. And searching those phone books takes a lot of power. And so that's part of what this is doing. They had all these computers, so they also said, hey, here's another thing we can do. Instead of your website being on your computer with your real slow connection to your house, we'll rent you some space on one of these, and you can just put your website right on there. And now it's connected directly to the big pipe that we're connected to, and your website's really fast now, right? So you can actually locate your website on the server at Google, okay, in addition to the search engine stuff. What you need to know. Are you still going?
Yeah, I hear it. It's awesome.
Did you just go turn the master down?
This is Thomas's jam, so we all back up.
Marmion, go ahead.
So is like Steam and things like that, do they also somewhat run on Google when they're...
Steam is going to run on their own server. Okay? Steam's a different company. So Google started out as basically a phone book. Now, here's a funny thing. In 1998, actually all the way up until 2005 when I had a business, or 2007 I had a business, in order to, one of the ways I got people to find my business was by buying an ad in the Yellow Pages, the phone book.
Was it newspaper?
And today, guess how Google makes pretty much all of its money? Yeah, by selling ads based on what people are looking at. They're using these giant computers not only to run the searches and not only to host your stuff, but to figure out things about you. Google probably knows a ridiculous amount of information about you, and they probably have a file on you. And they use that to target advertising at you so that they can connect an advertiser that wants to sell you something to you who will probably buy it because they know enough about you to know what you want to buy. Yeah, it's true. And all you get for this is the ability to search up anything in the internet really fast, right? This is why Google's a multi-billion-dollar company. Yes, Marcus.
So like, if you look up like a lot of stuff about sports, each day like they would start advertising.
Yes.
Like, some
Yes.
sports or something.
Yeah, well, yes. And specifically, if you're looking at specific teams, they're going to start connecting you with people who sell that logo branded apparel and yada yada. I don't know exactly how they do it, but that's what they're doing. Yes. And that's why that sidebar pops up that has the advertisements, and it's always tied to you.
Amazon or something?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's tied to what you just searched for.
Because I searched something on Amazon.
Oh, yeah.
it showed up.
Okay, so that's okay.
Yes, so these guys are all, that's how they're making their money, okay? And Google has enough money now that they're buying, they were able to write their own browser, and they're buying everything, okay? Mr. House came in one day and asked me if it was likely that Google would burn his house down. And we can talk about why that was, if we have time at the end of this
Well,
class.
Google this, right? I mean, every one
Google
of these
owns that
devices.
whole, Google makes that, or Google hires a Chinese company to make that hardware, South Korean company.
South Korea.
Oh, first letter. Eileen. Eileen. Aileen. Dang it, so close. Aileen, go ahead. I'm not in that video because I've never worked there. This is today. This is 3 years ago, and Enoch moved off to North Carolina a long time ago. We still are friends. We still play games together and stuff online. We see each other at the holidays. Yes, Marcus. I'm glad you have so many questions, Marcus. Yeah, of course. People try to sue Google all the time.
But how much money would you get?
Once you have enough money, you become almost impervious to lawsuits. Not quite, but Microsoft lost to Netscape, but they still put Netscape out of business.
How much money would you get if
That question is,
That depends on what you say.
yeah, it depends on all sorts of things. Probably nothing. You probably lose money to Google. If you have a really good case, and let's say it was a patent case, you could get billions of dollars. I mean, there are people who have done that. And Google will just settle out of court sometimes. They're like, it's too expensive to mess with that. I'll just give you so many dollars.
It's not like it's
You have to be, you can't be you. It can't be you, Mark. You're not going to be you. You have to be another big company. Yes?
Isn't it really worth like,
Well, you don't have it.
I don't know what their value is right now, but it's huge.
All the app.
Here's what I know. My buddies who work for this guy, Google gives their employees stocks every year. Okay, it's part of the bonus. They give you some Google stock, and Google stock is probably worth $500 a share. One of my buddies who works there is another roommate from the past. Took his shares for 1 or 2 years and sold them and bought a Tesla vehicle. You know, they cost $60,000 a year. $60,000. So he used his Google shares and sold them in order to buy that car. Okay, so they pay their employees really well. Okay, so when you search for something, it's probably not Google telling you. So where's the information coming from then? And we get back to the very initial question, how should I know how to trust? When I get information from Google, it's not from Google. It's from someone else. Google's just the operator. Who's giving me that information? Somebody. Sometimes it's a corporation. In fact, if you go to .coms, .com stands for what? Anybody know? Commercial. Meaning the person who owns that website, this domain was set up in order for me to sell you stuff. Okay? Am I necessarily going to tell you the truth if I want you to buy my product? I'm going to tell you my product's the best, right? Even if it's not I think it's the best because I want you to buy it. It's the best for me if you buy it. It might not really be the best. You need to look somewhere else. Usually commercial sites aren't going to give you information about topics. They're going to give you information about products and services. Okay? So they're not necessarily the place to go to get it 100%. I mean, they're trustworthy in terms of, can I buy it for that price? Yes, you can from me. Okay? But they're not necessarily the place you're going to go to find out facts, okay, except about prices for things. So, what's EDU and Gov mean? Anybody know?
Education and government.
Education and government. Lots of teachers teaching a class like this would tell you, well, the most trustworthy sites are at EDU and government. And really, I'm probably mainly going to tell you that too. However, there's a caveat. That means there's an exception. I used to work with somebody who said, the last thing you should trust is anything with .gov, because you can't trust the government on anything. Okay? Wait, there are people who definitely 100% believe this, and they are entitled to their opinion. And if we weren't in the United States, and even it's not like the United States ever lies. They do sometimes. We catch them sometimes. Other governments, the Chinese government, is actively lying to its citizens, and we know that, and they're actively blocking their citizens from seeing certain things, like YouTube and things that they don't want to see. North Korea. North Koreans don't even know what the internet is, okay, because they don't get to have it.
That's South Korea.
No, it's North Korea. South Korea is the ones that are our allies. North Korea are the ones who it's very dark. Oh, that's South Korea. Shh. Alexis.
North Korea actually, they redo Disney movies in Korean, and
Totally changed the themes and stuff.
no, they think that they created Disney.
Oh yeah, they tell real quick on North Korea. They'd say things like their leader once had a perfect golf game. Like he hit a hole-in-one on every hole, and they literally say this as if it's true. Okay?
He never poops.
He never excretes. He never poops.
Yeah, no, he never poops.
That is a real thing that they say about. They said about Kim Jong-il. I don't think they said about Kim Jong-il. Okay, so listen. No. I would argue that for the most part, if it's a .gov, you can probably trust it, but there are lots and lots of people who would say, what about Obamacare.gov? I don't trust them at all, okay? So, questionable. I'm not saying that. I'm saying there are people who might say that. Obamacare, or sorry, healthcare.gov, whatever it's called. .edus are the original ones that are owned by these universities. Probably, but there are some students who own .edus. There are some professors who have .edus who don't necessarily have trustworthy information. For the most part, universities have a reputation to protect, and so they're not going to let really crazy stuff be said under their name. However, okay, I don't know if, like, Mr. House, you know Bob Jones is a .edu? Okay. There could be universities that had significantly different opinions on certain subjects than most other universities, and they might publish that opinion, okay? And we all know that even in science, sometimes scientists get stuff wrong. It can happen, okay? For the most part, you can probably trust these, okay? Let's go back to .gov for a second. If you go to NASA.gov and you want to know something about space, it's probably very trustworthy, right? I'm going to tell you that NASA's probably not got any reason to lie to you, and they're probably pretty right about space stuff, okay? Because they employ some of the most brilliant space minds, physicists and stuff. So you can probably trust NASA.gov. Lots of teachers will tell you, don't trust the .com, but .orgs are more trustworthy. Well, here's the thing. I own 3.4.orgs, 5.orgs. because I bought the .coms and I wanted to own the .org also, so if somebody put the wrong thing on there, I could redirect them to my .com. But I can put anything I want on those .orgs. There's nothing stopping me. Okay? Let me give you an example of a .org.
Oh, yeah, you're not sure of that.
See this already?
I saw them after it.
A white supremacist group called Stormfront, I think, owns this site. You can find out, here's another piece of research you can do. You would think, yeah, this is all lies, okay? Here's the thing. Martin Luther King. This coming Monday is the celebration of his birthday, okay? He was instrumental in getting equaler rights. I would say, I argue that they're not totally equal yet, but more equal rights for black people, and then by extension, Hispanic people, Marshallese people, any non-white people. Very important person to equality in this country. If you're a white supremacist group, and sort of by definition, if you're a white supremacist group, you probably don't like black people much. Do you think that stuff do you think they like this guy? No. Yeah. No! They do not like this guy. If they don't like this guy and they bought this website, they're probably not telling you nice things about this person. And if they have to lie, they're going to lie. And there's nothing said that their freedom of speech is the same as yours, and they can say anything they want on this website. Covered by the Constitution. It's .org, folks. And it's his real name, martinlutherking.org. I'm sure that his family and organizations that support MLK have tried to buy this, and those guys are like, no way. We're not selling that. So, here's the thing though. You can go to a website called who.is, or you can do this in a command line prompt if you know how to do that. You can do whois. If you go to Google and just type who is and this website, it'll probably take you to a resource. It'll tell you who owns the site. And it's going to tell you that Stormfront owns this site. And then you're going to Google Stormfront and you're going to see these guys are basically the guys who took over for the KKK. And you're going to go, huh, I wonder if they're telling me the truth about a black guy. And the answer is probably not. Okay? So you have to do some research. You can't just trust it because it's .org. You can't necessarily trust it just because it's a .gov or a .edu. Yes?
The volunteer said download flyers and pass out of school.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really? Oh, really? No.
Wait, is it what?
Download flyers, pass out of school.
Download flyers to pass out of your school.
Oh, wow.
I'm not going to click on that because we're on camera and there's probably stuff that I get in trouble for showing.
Can I do it off school Wi-Fi on my phone?
You can do it on school Wi-Fi as research, and I'm telling you that now recorded. Not on your phone right now. But you can look at it later, but I'm telling you, these people are not interested in telling you true things about Dr. King. Okay? They're interested in spreading propaganda. So, here's we get to the crux. How do you know how to trust? There's well, wait a minute, because there's a number of things we've actually talked about in this that can give you some idea. Google's own algorithm provides you with some help because a community of people are all pointing their websites at that website. You're not going to find this one come up. If you search Martin Luther King on Google, that site's not going to come up in the top first page. Because Google knows probably you're not looking for the white supremacist page. Okay? It probably used to come up, but there aren't a lot of legitimate people who want to spread true things about Dr. King linking to the white supremacy site. But you need to know this because if you were to go, well, let me see, martinlutherking.org, and you typed it in and tried it, hey, and then you're writing a paper for history, and use the stuff on that page, you ain't getting an A.
For National History.
Okay, yeah, you don't want to use that for National History Day unless you're talking about white supremacy in relation to Dr. King. So, Google gives you some clue. There's another guy in like 2000 whose girlfriend owned a bunch of Beanie Babies. Now, you may not know what those are. In the end of the 90s, these things were worth a ridiculous amount of money. And this guy was trying to help out his girlfriend. She wanted to sell her collection. So he was like, I wonder if I could auction these. Maybe I could make a site online and then just auction them. And he wrote this site called eBay. Now, eBay had an interesting idea for checking to see if you can trust somebody with your money, okay? Because what eBay is a giant garage sale for anybody in the world to sell their old junk, right? And today it's become a place where people sell new stuff too. But you don't know when you give this person your money if they're going to actually send you anything. So eBay combated this with another page out of Google's book, which was check with the community. I've had an eBay account since 2001, and what happens when you buy or sell something is, also if you're a seller and somebody says, I'll give you $1,000, and then you're like, okay, and then they never send the money. You're like, bleh, sucks. So eBay designed this system where you rate each other on each transaction. Yeah, that person really sent me the money, or yes, that person sent the item. It was the item that was in the picture. It was just like they described it. I would buy from this person again. Thumbs up. Or, this person lied. They sent me a piece of junk. Thumbs down. And it gives you an overall score so that when you go on eBay, you know what has happened in the past with that person. And now, if they have a high score, that's worth something. That has value, right? They can trade on that. You're more likely to buy from that person because they look trustworthy. They don't want to start screwing people over because that makes the score go down, right? So that's a thing you can do. 3 minutes. So, you can use Whois to find out who owns that site. You could go look up my websites and do Whois and you'd see my name, probably, or you'd see my company's name. So, you can do the following 3 things, okay? Or here's 2 things. Number 1 is this. When actually, let me reverse this. You need to avoid a problem that all scientists have, and it's called what, Mr. House?
Confirmation bias.
Confirmation bias. And what that is the tendency, when you're looking for an answer, to actively look for answers that agree with what you already thought. And scientists have to avoid this all the time. We have to try to set up experiments so we don't actually try to prove the thing that we already think is the answer. Hold on, Marmion, because we're almost out of time. Ask me after class. So you want to avoid just confirming what you already thought was the answer, because you may be wrong, right? You gotta be quiet because we're almost done. So here's the thing I do. I argue with people all the time, and then I'll go online to look it up. And I will intentionally continue to look at websites until I find one that doesn't agree with what I thought the answer was. And I try to find more websites like that, and then I find a bunch that do agree, and then maybe I find a third thing that I didn't think of. And then I kind of average it all and try to figure out, well, what is the right answer? So that's one thing you can do. But contained with that is another thing you should always do. Do not just click on the first link. You need to click on 10 links and read what they all have to say and see if they're agreeing with each other or if they're totally different, okay? You might have clicked on martinlutherking.org and think all sorts of weird stuff that's not true now. So you need to click on a bunch of other sites. The last thing I'm going to ask you before I let you go. How do you feel about Wikipedia? Okay, hold it. Yes, I'm going to say this. You've been taught, and I get in fights all the time about this. Teachers, I'll go to conferences and teachers will say, well, of course you can't trust Wikipedia, and I'll say, why not? And here's the thing I'm going to tell you. For the most part, most of the stuff on Wikipedia is pretty correct. And those teachers who are telling you, don't ever trust Wikipedia, when they Google something and the first link's Wikipedia, guess what they click on? Wikipedia! Because it's mostly true. It's a very good place to start. Don't end there. use it as a launch pad, and then go to other sites. At the bottom of the Wikipedia page are their links to their primary sources that they use. Go check those out. Have a great day. Yes.